Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are diving into a stack of source material all about Kendra Adachi's The Lazy Genius Way.
That's right. We've gone through the research, the notes, everything you've shared. And our mission here really is to cut through the noise, unpack the core ideas from this book, and pull out the insights that are most, important and maybe surprising for you.
Think of this as your shortcut, yeah.
Yeah.
A way to understand how you might build a life that feels, less chaotic, maybe more joyful, and not by just grinding harder, but by, working smarter.
Exactly. And that's the real aha moment, I think, the surprise. You hear lazy and maybe picture like lying on the couch.
Right.
But it's kind of the opposite. It's about finding these really strategic, almost genius shortcuts to consciously free up your time, your energy.
Your most valuable resources.
Totally. And then you get to decide where that energy goes, towards what actually matters to you.
Yeah, I have to admit, before digging into this, I kind of thought routines meant rigidity. Like they'd kill any spontaneity.
Common misconception.
But this whole approach seems to flip that script. It's more about intentionally designing things so your life actually works for you.
Precisely. And it really all starts with this fundamental shift in thinking that Kendra calls being a lazy genius.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because the sources make a really strong point early on. Just trying harder isn't enough. You need strategy.
Right. And there's that story, it's pretty relatable, right at the start of the material about the homemade stuffed French toast disaster.
Oh, tell us about that. It sounds memorable.
It really is. So she wanted to make something really nice for her small group, right? Put in tons of effort, this elaborate stuffed French toast.
Sounds delicious, if ambitious.
Totally. But it ended up as just soggy bread. And the sources actually say confused senior adults.
A small chuckle. Okay, soggy bread and confused seniors. That paints a picture. So, loads of effort, good intentions, but it didn't work.
Not at all. And it's the perfect illustration, really. Best intentions, hard work, great.
Oh.
But without that strategic thinking, it can fall flat. Being a lazy genius isn't about slacking off. It's about applying your effort where it actually counts for maximum impact.
So it boils down to being intentional. Asking that question, where can I put my energy for the biggest payoff?
Exactly. Because we all have limited time, limited energy, right? So being choosy, being strategic about where you invest that instead of just being busy. That's the core idea.
Which brings us to a question the sources pose, and maybe one for you listening right now. What are you currently pouring energy into that?
Yeah.
Maybe isn't giving you the best return. What could you gain if you found a smarter way, freed up that time, that mental space?
Yeah, that reframing changes everything. And thinking about freeing up mental space, that leads us straight into the first big principle.
Principle number 1, decide once.
This one is deceptively simple, but really powerful. Because if you stop and think about it, the number of tiny decisions we make every day, it's exhausting. What to wear, what to eat for lunch, when to leave, which bill to pay, it just adds up.
It really does. And that cumulative mental load, it's huge. So decide once is all about identifying those routine, low-stakes decisions and basically making them in advance or automating them.
So like instead of staring into my closet every morning, I could just have a few go-to outfits picked out, a kind of uniform.
Exactly. Or, planning your meals for the week, setting up automatic bill pay, having a standard packing list you always use for weekend trips. The sources give loads of good examples. It's about cutting down the need to spend brain power on the same small things over and over.
And the really interesting bit from the sources is that this isn't just about like saving 5 minutes deciding on breakfast. It's about preserving your willpower.
Yes. This is so key. The sources really emphasize that willpower is finite. It's like a muscle that gets tired. The more small decisions you make, socks, snacks, whatever, the more you deplete that resource.
Ah, I see. So it gets harder to make the big decisions well later on. Or resist temptation. Precisely. You're conserving that valuable mental energy for where it really matters. And this is where routines fit in beautifully. The sources use this great analogy. You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb, right?
Hopefully not.
You pick the right tool for the job? Routines are tools. They aren't restrictions. They're the right tools to help you achieve your goals more easily.
That's a much better way to think about them. Not rigid cages, but helpful structures. They provide predictability.
Which is incredibly freeing, actually, especially when life gets unpredictable. The sources mention Kendra's own experience, like when her parents were divorcing or when they were moving. Routines were like an anchor, providing stability when everything else felt up in the air.
Okay, so if routines are tools, how do we actually build one that sticks, that feels freeing and not just like another chore?
Well, the sources suggest a pretty simple 3-step process. Start small, find your rhythm, and keep your goal in mind.
Start small, like really small.
Yes. Don't try to, completely revamp your entire morning on day one. Maybe it's just deciding you'll put your keys in the same bowl by the door every single time you walk in. Or aiming to get to bed just 15 minutes earlier than usual. Tiny steps.
Okay. And find your rhythm. What does that mean?
That's kind of the experimentation part. What helps that small change actually feel natural and stick? If your goal is getting to bed earlier, what helps you wind down? Is it reading? A bath? Dimming the lights an hour before? You find the pattern, the rhythm that works for you, not some ideal you read about.
Right. Personalized.
Yeah.
Not one size fits all. And the last step. Keep your goal in mind, always connecting back to the why.
Exactly. Why are you doing this? For the bedtime routine, the goal is probably feeling more rested, having more energy. For the keys, it's avoiding that frantic morning search, starting the day calmer. Knowing the why behind the routine gives it purpose and fuels it.
Start small, find your rhythm, remember the goal. Okay, that feels doable. So moving from decisions in time, let's talk about our stuff, our physical space.
Right. Principle number 2, put everything in its place. And Kendra uses the tiny house movement as a kind of metaphor here.
Which is interesting. Even if you don't want to live in 200 square feet, that idea of being really mindful about what you bring in, making sure everything has a purpose that resonates.
Absolutely. It's not about becoming an extreme minimalist unless that's your thing. It's more about consciously curating your environment so your stuff serves you rather than just, cluttering up your space in your mind.
Because the mental impact of clutter,
Yeah.
and it's definitely real.
Oh, it really is. When my space feels chaotic, my mind feels chaotic too. The sources talk about how a disorganized space keeps your brain constantly in overdrive trying to process all the visual noise. Your environment either supports you or it stresses you out.
So this principle is about creating that physical order to support mental calm. How do the sources suggest we actually achieve that? What are the practical steps?
It breaks down into 6 pretty practical organizing habits.
Okay, lay them on us.
First, find a place for everything. Sounds basic, right? But this is often where things fall apart. Stuff piles up because it doesn't have a designated home. The mail on the counter, the stuff on that chair.
Ah, yes, the dreaded chair where things go to wait. Indefinitely.
Ooh, chuckles.
Right.
Exactly that chair. So habit 2 builds on this. Know where things belong. This is proactive. When something new comes into your house, decide immediately where its home is going to be. Don't just put it down somewhere for now.
Okay, proactive assignment. Makes sense. Habit number 3. I have a feeling this is the tricky one for a lot of us.
You guessed it. Get rid of what you don't need. And yeah, this is tough. We attach guilt or sentimentality or that maybe someday feeling to things.
It feels wasteful, maybe, especially if you spent money on it.
Right. But the sources challenge that. What's really more wasteful? Letting something sit unused for years, collecting dust, taking up physical and mental space, or letting it go so someone else might use it, or just freeing up that space and energy in your own life.
That's a good point. It shifts the perspective from scarcity, I might need this, to abundance, I trust I'll have what I need, and this isn't serving me now.
Exactly. And the book suggests, if you let something go and genuinely truly miss it down the line, you can probably replace it, but chances are you won't even remember it.
Okay, tough love on clutter. So we've found homes, assigned homes, and done some decluttering. What's next to maintain this?
Habit 4. Tackle one thing at a time. This is crucial for maintenance and avoiding overwhelm. Don't try to organize the entire garage on a Saturday. Pick one small zone, a single drawer, one shelf. That corner of the room that drives you crazy, set a timer for 15 minutes.
Small, manageable chunks again, like with routines.
Precisely. It builds momentum. You see progress, you feel good, it encourages you to keep going. Then, habit 5 acknowledges reality. Create a weekly cleaning routine. Life is messy. Dust happens, spills happen, kids happen. A quick weekly reset keeps things from spiraling. It's like hitting the refresh button on your space.
I like the hitting the refresh button.
And the final habit, number 6. Be mindful of what you keep. This loops back to the beginning. It's about intentional consumption. Before you bring something new into your home, pause. Ask yourself, do I really need this? Will it add value? Critically, do I have a place for it?
So it's about being a conscious curator, not just a consumer. Making your space reflect you, not just store stuff.
Exactly. Your environment should support the life you want to live, not get in the way.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing that chair in a new light now. So we've organized time, decisions, space. What about organizing our actual tasks? Let's talk about principle 3. batch it.
Ah, batching, yes. This sounds simple, but putting it into practice can sometimes feel a bit tricky.
Yeah, it seems logical, right? Do all the similar things together. But I still find myself jumping between answering an email, then making a call, then writing a paragraph.
Totally happens.
Yeah.
Which is why Kendra's story about her old bakery business, Sugar Box, is so helpful. She was making hundreds of cookies, trying to do all the steps, mixing, baking, decorating, packaging for every single order every day. And she was drowning.
Right, until she switched to batching. Like one day was just dough prep, another day was just baking, another just packaging.
Exactly. It completely changed her workflow. She basically made an assembly line for her life, at least for the bakery tasks. The core idea is grouping similar activities so your brain can lock in and focus. You get into that zone or flow state without the mental whiplash of constantly switching gears.
And this isn't just for bakers, it applies to everyday stuff too.
Oh, absolutely. The sources give tons of examples. Laundry. Gather all the sorting, then do all the washing back to back, then fold everything at once.
Instead of one load start to finish, then another.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Or cleaning the kitchen. Gather all the dishes first, then wipe all the counters and the stove, then do all the washing or loading the dishwasher. Errands, group them together for one trip out.
And work tasks too, right? Blocking time specifically for emails, or for making calls, or for that deep, focused work that needs concentration.
Exactly. Batching isn't just about being faster, though it often is. It's really about reducing that mental friction, that energy drain from constantly switching contexts. It saves time, effort, and mental energy, especially for those repetitive, kind of ordinary tasks that fill our days.
I can almost feel the mental clutter clearing just thinking about tackling my inbox that way. Okay, so we've covered strategy, decisions, routines, space, task management. But underlying all of this, it feels like we need to talk about managing, well, ourselves, our internal state.
And that brings us perfectly to principle 4, be kind to yourself.
I think this one really hits home for a lot of people. We can be so incredibly hard on ourselves, can't we?
Oh, definitely. Those unrealistic expectations we set, the constant inner critic comparing ourselves to everyone else's highlight reel, it's not just emotionally exhausting, it's actually counterproductive. It drains the very energy and motivation you need to even try these other strategies.
Kendra shares a really moving story in the sources about needing comfort from her husband after a really tough day with her daughter, and realizing that ultimately the comfort and validation she was looking for had to come from inside herself.
Yes, that story really underscores a crucial point.
Yeah.
You are ultimately responsible for how you feel about yourself. That constant feeling of not good enough often comes from chasing some imaginary ideal self instead of accepting and appreciating the person you are right now.
So how do we actually shift that? How do you cultivate that self-kindness when the inner critic is so loud?
The sources offer 3 really practical habits. First, value who you are today.
Which means letting go of the shoulds and if-onlys, embracing the person you are right now, flaws and all.
Yeah, exactly. It's about cultivating gratitude for your current reality, your strengths, your experiences, even the challenges that have shaped you. Shifting focus from what you think is lacking to appreciating the abundance that's already there. Giving yourself permission, really, to be perfectly imperfect.
Okay, valuing who I am today. Got it. What's the second habit?
Embrace your potential. Now, this isn't about chasing that ideal self again. It comes after acceptance. It's recognizing that from this place of self-worth, you do have the capacity for growth. It's about taking small steps towards goals, not out of criticism, but with curiosity and maybe even excitement.
Curiosity instead of pressure. I like that. And the third habit?
Celebrate your wins. This one is so important and so easily skipped over.
Oh, yeah. We're trained to just tick the box and move on to the next thing on the never-ending list, aren't we?
Totally. And that is a surefire recipe for burnout. Taking a moment to actually acknowledge your accomplishments, big or small, is vital. It validates your effort, it reinforces your sense of competence and self-worth, and it actually fuels your motivation to keep going.
And celebrating doesn't have to mean throwing a huge party, right? It can be smaller.
Absolutely. It could be just pausing to really savor that feeling of, I did it. Acknowledging the progress you made. Treating yourself to something small. Taking a moment of quiet satisfaction. It's consciously telling yourself, hey, that was good, I'm doing okay. It reframes self-care not as selfish, but as essential fuel.
Essential fuel. I like that. And how does this principle, being kind to yourself, connect back to all the practical stuff, like deciding once or batching?
The sources frame it as the foundation, really. Self-compassion is the fuel that makes everything else possible. If you're constantly beating yourself up, where will you find the energy, the resilience, the motivation to build new routines or organize your space or batch your tasks consistently?
It creates that internal reservoir you need to draw from.
Exactly. When you approach things from a place of self-kindness, it creates space. Space for joy, space for creativity, space for showing up authentically, because you're not wasting all your energy fighting an internal battle.
That's a really powerful link. And it feels like it leads directly into the final principle, which seems less like a strategy and more like the ultimate goal, the state you're aiming for.
Exactly. Principle 5, live in the season.
This one speaks right to that challenge of being present, doesn't it? Not getting lost in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future.
Completely. Our culture pushes us so hard towards more, next, better, that it's incredibly easy to miss the value, the beauty, just the reality of the present moment. We don't appreciate what we have now because we're always looking ahead or behind.
So living in the season means consciously shifting focus to what is, finding the good in the ordinary.
Yeah, the sources talk about finding beauty in the mundane, finding meaning in the everyday moments that actually make up most of our lives. It's about appreciating the specific phase you're in right now.
Okay, but how do you do that? How do you cultivate presence when life feels so busy and distracting? Are there practical tips?
Yes, definitely. The sources mention a few key things. Awareness is the baseline, just noticing when your mind drifts off, which it will constantly, and gently, without judgment, bringing it back to whatever you're doing right now. It's a practice, not about achieving perfection.
Right. It's the noticing and returning, not about having a totally empty mind.
Exactly. Another tip is engaging your senses. Simple things, really, like truly tasting your food instead of inhaling it, feeling the warmth of the sun or the breeze on your skin, actively listening to the sounds around you, birds, traffic, silence, noticing colors, textures. It just means slowing down enough to actually experience the world through your body.
Bringing mindfulness into those everyday things we usually rush through.
And practicing gratitude is huge here, too. It's such a powerful tool for anchoring yourself in the present. Consciously shifting your focus from what you feel you lack to the abundance that's already around you. Taking just a moment each day to notice and appreciate small things, good coffee, a comfortable bed, a text from a friend, maybe even just a good hair day.
Gratitude really does rewire your brain towards contentment, doesn't it?
It absolutely shifts your perspective. And when you cultivate this kind of presence, you can more fully embrace whatever season of life you're in. You can see its unique challenges, yes, but also its unique beauty, its lessons. And you can let go of that pressure to have it all figured out or be somewhere else entirely.
So how does this final principle tie back to the others decide once, routines, organizing, batching, self-kindness? Is it the end result?
The sources kind of frame it that way, yeah. Living in the season is almost like the ultimate outcome. It's the state of being that naturally emerges when you implement the other strategies effectively. Because deciding once, building routines, organizing your space, batching tasks, all of that reduces the mental clutter, the overwhelm. It creates space.
And it's in that space that you can actually be present, that joy can actually show up.
Exactly. Those other principles aren't just efficiency tricks. They're tools to carve out the mental and physical bandwidth you need to actually experience and appreciate your life right here, right now, in this season. It's kind of the cherry on top of designing a life with intention and kindness.
That makes so much sense. Beautifully put. Okay, we've walked through all these core principles, and it's been incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift gears slightly. We want to address some common hurdles, some questions that often pop up when you, listening, might try to actually put these ideas into practice.
Yeah, that's great. Because, understanding the concepts is one thing, but figuring out how to make them work in the messy reality of your actual life, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. So first question, we hear variations of a lot. I feel totally overwhelmed just thinking about all this. Where do I even begin? It feels like too much.
Oh, that feeling is so common and totally understandable. The Lazy Genius Way gives you a whole toolkit, but you definitely don't have to use every tool all at once. The absolute key, and we keep coming back to this, is start small. Pick just one principle that feels maybe the most appealing or the most needed right now. Or pick one super tiny area of your life to apply it to.
So I don't need to, overhaul my entire life by next Tuesday. I could just pick one thing. Maybe decide once, just what I'm having for breakfast each day.
Exactly. Or pick one messy drawer, just one, and put everything in its place to that drawer. Spend 10 minutes on it. The goal isn't instant perfection, it's just getting started. Making one small change builds momentum, it builds confidence. You get those little wins that show you, hey, this actually can work for me.
Okay, that definitely lowers the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
One small thing.
Got it.
Next question, and I know this resonates deeply for many listeners. I'm a parent, maybe of young kids, and I feel like I have literally zero time or energy left for myself. How can I possibly implement any of this self-care or routine stuff?
Ah, yes. The chaos of parenting young children is, well, it's a whole other level. And the sources acknowledge this up front. Yes, finding time feels impossible. But here's the counterintuitive argument they make, and it's powerful. Self-care, making space for yourself, is even more crucial when you're in the thick of parenting. You simply cannot be the best parent you want to be if you're constantly running on empty.
But what does self-care even look like when you're utterly exhausted and time-crunched? It sounds like another thing to add to the list.
Right, it can feel that way, but the sources suggest reframing it. It doesn't have to be, a spa day or an hour of yoga. It's essential maintenance, not a luxury. It could be literally 5 minutes of sitting quietly with coffee before the kids wake up, reading just 2 pages of a book you enjoy, locking the bathroom door for a slightly longer shower, maybe deciding that the 30 minutes after the kids are finally asleep is your non-negotiable time to just sit or read or zone out whatever recharges you.
And that connects back to decide once, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Deciding that little pocket of me time, however small, is a non-negotiable part of the routine.
Precisely. It's giving yourself permission. It's not selfish to prioritize your own basic well-being. It's actually essential for everyone's sanity and happiness in the household. You're modeling self-respect, too.
That's a really important shift. Okay, slightly different angle with this next question. I feel like I'm just going through the motions. Life feels okay, but kind of bland. How do I figure out what truly matters to me so I can live more intentionally beyond just managing tasks better?
That's a big, deep question, and it's not just parents who feel that way. It's so easy to get caught on the treadmill of daily life and lose touch with what actually lights you up, what feels meaningful. You feel disconnected.
Like you're driving really efficiently, but you're not sure where you're going.
Exactly. Great analogy. The sources suggest a couple of pathways here. One is intentional reflection, setting aside even just a little time, maybe journaling, maybe just quiet thinking to explore. What are my core values? What activities genuinely energize me? What am I curious about? What has felt most meaningful in the past?
Dig in a little deeper into your own internal landscape. And the other pathway?
Experimentation, gently trying new things, maybe revisiting hobbies you used to love but let slide.
Yeah.
Stepping just slightly outside your usual comfort zone. Sometimes you don't really know what matters most until you actually dip your toe in and try it.
And the sources also emphasize it doesn't have to be finding some grand, singular passion with a capital P, right?
Not at all. It can absolutely be about bringing more intention and presence to the simple, everyday joys. Really savoring that walk outside, putting on music you love while you cook, making time for connection with people you care about. It's often about consciously choosing and appreciating the small things that align with your values, whatever those might be for you.
That makes it feel much more achievable, less pressure. Okay, final question. And this is one I personally grapple with constantly. I am so easily distracted. My phone, email notifications, the mental to-do list buzzing in my head. How can I possibly be more present, live in the season, when there's this constant barrage of stimulation?
Oh, the struggle is intensely real. We live in an attention economy, basically, and our devices and platforms are designed to hijack our focus. Our brains love the novelty. It literally shrinks our ability to concentrate over time. So step one is just acknowledging, yes, this is hard, and it's a constant battle.
It feels like I'm always fighting upstream against distraction.
You really are. The lazy genius way isn't about, achieving monk-like focus overnight. It's about being intentional about carving out pockets of presence. Setting boundaries around technology is a big one the sources mention.
Like actually creating phone-free zones or times. No phones at the dinner table.
Exactly. Or maybe no screens in the bedroom. Maybe leaving your phone in another room when you're trying to focus on a task or play with your kids. These aren't about punishing yourself. They're about creating little sanctuaries of quiet, spaces where you can disconnect from the external chatter and reconnect with yourself or the people or the activity right in front of you.
And what about things like mindfulness or meditation?
Yeah, the sources touch on that too. Even just a few minutes a day of focused breathing or a simple body scan or a guided meditation can act like exercise for your attention muscle. It helps you practice noticing when you get distracted, which is the key part, and gently guiding your focus back. Again, the goal isn't perfect, Uninterrupted stillness. It's building the skill of returning to the present moment over and over again.
Wow, this has been such a rich, deep dive. I feel like we've really distilled the essence of the lazy genius way and seen how these seemingly simple principles actually weave together into something quite profound.
Absolutely. And I think the most liberating takeaway, the core message really, is that this isn't about hitting some external benchmark of perfection or following someone else's rigid rules. It's all about figuring out what works for you, what matters to you, and then finding smart, kind ways to make more room for that in your actual real life.
Yeah, being kind to yourself throughout that whole process. Embracing the unique season you happen to be in right now, hiccups and all. And aiming for a life that feels more authentic, maybe more joyful, definitely more fulfilling on your own terms.
It's a journey, right? Continuous adjustments, giving yourself grace, creating ease and joy, one small, strategic, kind decision at a time.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over, building on everything we've talked about. What's just one small thing you could perhaps decide once about this coming week?
Yeah.
Or what's one tiny corner or drawer you could put everything in its place? Just to experiment, just to see if it frees up even a tiny bit of that precious mental energy.
Find what works for you, try it out, and gently let go of the rest.
Until next time, keep it simple and keep shining.